Hey guys, Evan here. How you all doing today? So guys, today I'm bringing you the next part of the Warrior Guide series, which is going to be about, yes guys, you guessed it, my favorite spec, arms. I love arms so much. It's always been my favorite spec throughout most expansions, and I've always loved the way arms looks with the one sword. It just looks so iconic. But yeah guys, enough of the talking about that. Let's get straight into the guide. So, we're going to be talking about a couple of subjects. Them subjects being my stats priority, my gear setup, my enchants, my spec, my glyphs, and then finally the warrior rotation for arms. So yeah guys, let's delve straight into it. So first up, the stat priority is for arms warriors. It's going to be mastery foremost and foremost, then strength, then versatility, then crit, then haste, and lastly multi-strike. Multi-strike is probably by far the worst stat as an arms warrior. Stack it as little as possible as you can. The reason my mastery is the strongest stat, I'll show you now. Currently I have 107% mastery, which is literally 107% damage. Now if I try and change this trinket here to my strength trinket, I lose about 11% mastery, which is actually 11% damage loss. But my strength goes up to 4000, so we gain about 250 attack power strength wise. 250 attack power of 4000 is about 6 or 7% more damage. But the mastery trinket increases my damage by 11%. So therefore mastery is a stronger stat than strength overall, and that's why mastery is top of the list. Now the reason why I've done that is I'll show you my current gear setup. Now over here I've gone for all the 4 set pieces except for the legs. So I've gone the gloves, the shoulders, the chest piece and the helmet. They're just normal. I know you haven't got the right stats in the helmet, but that's just the way it is, and I'll explain why in a second. Because I've gone for the legs, and the reason I've gone for the legs because they've got the 2 best stats. They've got all of the stats you need: mastery, versatility and strength. Same with the waist. The waist has also got mastery, versatility and strength, the best 3 stats for a warrior. If you can get them on any piece of gear, you always go for it. But always put mastery as your primary stat regardless of what the secondary stat is. So for instance here, I've gone for mastery crit, even though crit's not that great. Also with the gear setup, I've also got mastery crit ring, but I've used the blue ring, and the reason I used the blue ring is because it has mastery on it, and you're able to use both of these. So I've stacked the shit ton of mastery on this. If you can get the 626 ring, it'd be great. Now the trinkets, I've gone for the actual equip versatility trinket, and I've gone for the mastery use trinket, and the reason being obviously because mastery is better. Gone for the known weapon, obviously. Gone for the mastery haste wrists. I've gone for the mastery haste cape. I've gone for the mastery crit neck piece. Now the reason I've gone for all of that is because it just gets my mastery so freaking high, which does a lot of damage, as you guys can tell. So with that being said guys, let's now get straight into the enchants. The enchants I've obviously gone for is all mastery all around. Mastery on rings, mastery on neck, mastery on cape with the speed increase, and obviously mark of bleeding hollow enchant. Now all in all, with all of this procced all, I have 100% right now. If I get in PvP combat, my mastery goes up to 148%, and now you just see my weapon, my proc, so that's 148% with my weapon. Now if I get a mastery buff from a hunter or a paladin, that goes up to about 170%, and it's a lot. I mean, it's a freaking lot of mastery guys. And on the PTR I've been doing a bit of testing guys, so this guide is actually going to work in the 6.2, and it averages on about 202% mastery, which makes it, you hit like a truck, and I mean like a freaking truck. So definitely the best stat priority for this is that, and the enchants obviously as well. So next we're going to get straight into my spec. Now what specs do I use? Well, it really depends on what you're doing. On average I'll use this particular spec here: Stormbolt, Blade Storm, Safeguard, Anger Management, Rate Regen, Sudden Death and Double Time. And the reason I use it this way is because this is mostly for 1v1 fights, but it also works in some arena situations when you're fighting, say, comps that are going to root you a lot, but you also need Stormbolt to healer. So you might use Blade Storm against, say, RMD, because the mage is going to freaking root you, Rogue's going to stun you and try to control you. If you Blade Storm out of a smoke bomb and the roots, it just completely pisses RMD off a lot. Your healers are definitely going to compensate for it. Try to safeguard your healer as well, just so you don't get the roots. Now, the spec can vary. I mean, you can go for Avatar for more sustained single target damage, and you can go for Shockwave depending on your fighting melee cleave. But on average, against any comp in the arenas, you're going to want to be using Stormbolt most of the time because you want to CC the healer. Now, you can change that a little bit, and you can go for Mass Barrel Effect to reflect any traps and stuff like that. But on average, this is usually the spec I use. I will sometimes switch to Shockwave. And the reason I use Sudden Death over Slam is because Slam doesn't hit a lot right now. Slam's very weak overall, and I feel Sudden Death hits a lot more. The execute procs hit a good bit, and Taste of Blood is just kind of gone by the wayside. I mean, it doesn't give you what you need in overall. But let's go through the talents actually as a whole, rather than just telling you what current talents I use. Because Juggernaut is pretty good, but the problem with Juggernaut is Double Time actually offers you something that Juggernaut doesn't, and it offers you the ability to charge twice, which means if you're actually fighting a Resto Druid, for instance, and you need to charge a second time, you'll find that you may be able to get back on them. It really depends on what comp you're playing as well. Like TSG, you want to be able to get back on the target as quick as you can, but for comps like WS, you might not need that, so you could just go for Juggernaut. But Warbringer is definitely a bad choice, except for in Jewels, of course. If you're playing the one-shot spec, which actually works as arms in 6.2, you can use that Siegebreaker into a Warbringer stun, then you can pop CDs, Cluster Smash, stun them, and then Mortal Strike and do a heck of a lot of damage. Now, the reason I use Enraged Regen over the other two, obviously, is Enraged Regen heals for a lot. It's on a short cooldown, 1 minute, and coupled with Rallying Cry and the Rank Cry gift does a lot. Second Wind is kind of dead, and Impending Victory is too long of a cooldown for only 15% of your health back. Sudden Death, just as I said, procs better than the other two. Shockwave Stormbolt really depends on what you want to go. Ideally, you want to be Stormbolt for that CC, but sometimes you might want to be Shockwave on some maps where you know you're going to be stacking up, or they're going to be stacking up, or anything like that. Safeguard is a pretty good option for most times. The only time you want to use Mass Barrel Effect is when you're trying to get a Hunter's Trap, a Cyclone, a Sheep, reflect anything you can. Vigilance is probably the worst talent of the three, never choose that. Safeguard is on a short cooldown compared to a 2-minute cooldown, making Safeguard a lot more viable for the damage reduce and Mass Barrel Effect for the CC. On the next talent, Bloodbath is not really my choice of anything for any of these. Ideally you want to be going Bladestorm or Avatar. Avatar obviously for the sustained increased single target damage, which is actually really freaking good, guys. I love Avatar. I will spec Avatar on most fights except for when I haven't to use Bladestorm, which against RMD or comps like that, like I said. Now, ideally, Bladestorm is pretty good AoE damage as well, so you're playing a cleave comp like WS, might be good, but if you want to just single target damage, Avatar is also good as well. Now, ideally you want to be Anger Management at all freaking times, except for when you're playing the retired comp like you want to use it with one shot, so you might go Siegebreaker, but it really depends. I mean, comps like Turbo or any comp, even WS Siegebreaker would be pretty good because you might be using a Druid or something like that. So your Warlock and your Druid are going to be DRing everything, so you don't really want to have a fear. But ideally, most of the time you want to be Anger Management just because it reduces the cooldown. Stormbolt, Avatar, pretty much almost everything. So all in all, I feel that this is the best talent choices. I will mostly probably be playing with these talents. I would switch out Bladestorm when I'm finding a comp that I find that I need to get out of roots a lot, and I will go Shockwave against melees. Now, ideally, you're thinking about BGs rather than anything else, because I did say my dueling spec and range spec. For BGs, you might want to go for Shockwave's Bladestorm, because I feel like if you Shockwave a couple of people after you've bled them up into a Bladestorm Recklessness, you can literally melt a whole team in seconds. So it's a good little option to have. But they're my talent choices, guys, and we're going to get next into the glyphs. Now, glyphs I usually go with is all the time you want to be Bull Rush if you're in arena. Same with BGs. You Bull Rush, but you might want to change out Bull Rush for Glyph of Long Charge, depending on what you're fighting in a duel. Because at the end of the day, if you're fighting a mage that's kiting you or a hunter, and you can't get back on them, this is a really good glyph to keep you back on them. Now, at all times you want to be Glyph of Rallying Cry, except for in arenas. But in duels and BGs, Rallying Cry are all times. The Mortal Strike glyph is really good. You probably want to be this at least 90% of the time, regardless of what you're doing, BGs, RBGs, arenas or duels, because this is really good. The only time you'd switch this glyph out would be for Flawless Defense. Now you might switch this glyph out because you might be fighting way too many casters. And that's not really going to do much healing for you when you're fighting like 2 or 3 casters. So you might want to reduce the critical strike damage with Flawless Defense. Now, if you're going to go for an arena spec, what you could do, and this is what I usually do, is I would keep Bull Rush, Mortal Strike, and I would switch Rallying Cry out for the Rude Interruption Glyph, which gives you 6% more damage when you pummel a target, which is really good. But ideally what I would do when I'm in arena, I would probably switch out the Rallying Cry Glyph for Shatter if I need to shatter anything and stuff like that. Just generally making it so I can always do something at all times. But these are usually the glyphs I go around. Most of the time I never really go for Death from Above. It's not really that great, and Blitz is not too good either as it used to be. But Bull Rush is a really good glyph because it gives you that extra rage you need, especially as arms, to be able to hit the target as hard as you can. Mortal Strike is good to keep yourself alive, especially when it actually gives you more healing, not just from you but from your healer as well. So it makes your healer's job a lot easier to keep you alive in arenas, because enemies face it, arms is a bit squishy, so Mortal Strike is definitely a good choice. But like I said, on average most of the time I'll switch out the Rallying Cry glyph for anything else, like Rallying Cry for Shatter or Rallying Cry for Rude Interruption. And they are my glyph choices, guys. Hope you guys found something useful for that. But now let's get straight into the last thing which you guys are actually looking forward to, which is the rotation. Okay, so guys, the arms rotation is actually more of a priority system than an actual rotation. And that rotation priority system is execute if the target is below 20% health, Mortal Strike next, execute when it procs, Cluster Smash, then Rend, and then finally Whirlwind. Always make sure your Rend reapplies after the target it drops on, and always use Cluster Smash when you've got a Mortal Strike up, but never before. Just because you want to make sure that Mortal Strike hits a little bit harder than it usually does. Ideally, what you also want to try to do is, if you can, always try to get a charge going, because your set bonus will actually increase the critical strike chance of your Mortal Strike, therefore increasing your damage overall. Now, ideally what you want to do is you would charge in like on the target as per usual. You would go in, get your Hamstring and Rend on, as usual. Then you would use your Mortal Strike, you got a proc here, so you use Execute, then Cluster Smash, another proc Execute, then you can use Mortal Strike again, and make sure you just reapply your Rend, and then use Whirlwind every time you got excess rage to actually use on the Whirlwind in the first place. Now, ideally with Burst though, you want to be doing something a little bit different. So you want to you would just basically, you would go in, get your Read and Blend on, wait till you got a bit rage, and then you would wait for your proc on your trinket or anything like that, pop your cooldowns, Cluster Smash, Mortal Strike, Execute, Whirlwind, Whirlwind, Mortal Strike, Whirlwind, Whirlwind. Just use any procs of Execute you get, and every time Cluster Smash comes off cooldown, just refresh it and hit it with hard. Ideally, you want to try make sure that you keep everything going, ideally at all times, just so you can get maximum damage. But never use Cluster Smash before Mortal Strike, because you want to keep Mortal Strike off cooldown at all times. And ideally, you're going to get the Mortal Strike in the time of a Cluster Smash, because Mortal Strike is about 5.5 seconds and Cluster Smash lasts for 6. So you're always going to get one of your Mortal Strikes on the target at all times, regardless of anything. Rend is definitely okay to keep up on target, and if you can also try time your burst around the Rend tick, so when the Rend comes off, you just see it about to drop off, you can then pop your CDs, you can Cluster Smash, Mortal Strike, and then fucking go ham, you know, something like that. Just generally all good things. You could also wait for your execute procs before you go ham. It's up to you really, at the end of the day, it's your choice. But I feel personally, you're best going for burst when you actually see a burst opportunity. And usually execute procs quite often, so it's a good choice to actually do it whenever you want. But guys, that's exactly my rotation priority. But anyways guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you learned something about arm spec and in general what arms is capable of. I hope you learned something, hope you actually enjoyed the guide, and if you did, feel free to leave a subscribe on the channel for more future guides in this channel. Anyways guys, thank you for watching, and as always, this is Evylyn out. I love you all, take care, and I'll see you guys in the next one.